Now let's look at variables and variable naming conventions. So let me start by explaining what a variable is. If you go to the CIS department in TCB 312 at Sylvania campus, and you go into the mail room, you'll see a bunch of mailboxes. And attached to each mailbox is a little label with the name of the faculty member. So you'll actually find my name attached to one of the mailboxes in TCB 312. And a variable is kind of like the label on the mailbox. So basically, here's a mailbox, and here's a mailbox, and here's a mailbox, and one more. And this is how a computer's memory is set up. So the computer's memory is a set of cells, one after the other. So this is cell 0, and this is cell 1, 2, and 3. And you can store a different value in each cell. So for example, cell 0 might have a number like 23.5, and cell 1 might have the character A, and cell 2 might have a Boolean value like true, and cell 3 might have another number like -6. Now, you could write a program that just referred to each of these cells by their address, 0, 1, 2, or 3. But then your code would be really difficult to read and understand, because if I see, for example, a line of code that says, take the value in cell 1 and multiply it by the value in cell 3, and then add the value in cell 0, I would have no idea, logically speaking, what that program was trying to do. So modern computer languages, what they do in addition to being able to store values in memory cells, allow you to attach labels to each cell. So like this could be the cost of a meal, and this could be the discount from coupon. And then instead of writing a program that said something like cell 0 plus cell 3, and then store the result in cell 1, instead I could write a program like set final cost equal cost of a meal plus discount from coupon. So this line of pseudocode says take these two values, add them together, and then store the result in this variable. And the way that actually works is first the program looks up cost of a meal, so it finds the cell that has the label cost of a meal, gets the value 23.5, and so this basically means the same as typing 23.5 here. Then it goes and it finds discount from coupon, which is right here, gets the value of that cell, and this is like putting -6 here. Then add 23.5 to -6, that's going to be 17.5, and then store that in the cell that's labeled final cost. So find the value of final cost, and then in that cell, we're going to write 17.5. So that's how a variable works. A variable is just a label on a cell in memory. Now, the book uses a convention for naming variables called camel case. So in the book, you'll see variable names like cost of a meal and final cost and discount from coupon. And you'll see those in declare statements like declare real cost of a meal, and so on. Now, this naming convention is called camel case because the capital letters, the first letter of each word is capitalized, and they sort of look like the humps of a camel, at least kind of an odd-looking camel, but whatever. And specifically, this is called lower camel case because the first letter is lowercase, and then the first letter of each subsequent word is uppercase. So this is all called lower camel case. And this is used for naming variables and naming functions and modules, which we'll get to later in the course. And then for classes, when we get to object-oriented programming near the end of the course, it uses upper camel case. So discount from coupon would be the name of a type or a class. Discount from coupon would be the name of a variable or a function. And it does it this way because this is a common convention in a lot of different programming languages. So like if you work in Java or JavaScript or C Sharp, this is the most common naming convention for all of those languages, and it's the one that the book uses for their pseudocode. However, in Python, they use a slightly different naming convention most frequently. So in Python, what they do is they write the variable names the way I've written it here, all lowercase with an underscore character between each word. And so both variable names and function and module names, which we'll get to later, are going to be written this way in Python. And so we're going to depart from the convention in the textbook a little bit. Instead of using lower camel case for our pseudocode and then using the Python standard naming convention for our Python code, we're just going to use Python naming convention everywhere. And the reason for that is because when you use the name of one variable in your pseudocode and a non-matching variable in your Python code, you're more likely to make a mistake when you try to match the two together. So if I'm reading a piece of pseudocode and it says cost of a meal in camel case, and I'm modifying the program, I'm likely to just type cost of a meal in camel case inside my program in some places, and then use cost-of-a meal in other places. And those are considered two different variables in Python. And so my code won't work as a result. So rather than having two separate naming conventions, one for pseudocode and one for Python, we're just going to use the Python naming convention everywhere in our code, even though it's a different naming convention than the book uses.